Hi everyone, I am Praveen Chetty and I welcome you all to this video lecture. In this video lecture, I am going to talk to you about Gothic Romance. This topic is prescribed for the first semester BA core course in English of Mangalore University. Before I move further, let me talk about the contents of this PPT. I'll talk to you about what is literature, what are the genres of literature, the purpose of studying literature, what is Gothic Romance, and the important writers and the works of Gothic writers. Now, what is literature? Any piece of writing cannot be considered literature here. For example, if you go and buy a refrigerator, you are given a piece of literature. That piece of literature tells you how to use the refrigerator, and that is called the user's manual. But that is not the literature we are talking about here. If you look at the definitions given by R.J. Rees, he says writing which expresses and communicates thoughts, feelings, and attitudes towards life. So, literature is something that communicates thoughts, feelings, and attitudes towards life. If you look at another definition, writing is not literature unless it gives to the reader a pleasure which arises not only from the things said, but from the way in which they are said. And that pleasure is only given when the words are carefully or curiously or beautifully put together into sentences. So this is the definition given by Stopford Brooke, and in this definition you can see that there are two parts. One is the content, or what is written, and how it is written. So what is written also should give pleasure if it is a good piece of writing or literature, and the language that is used to say how to say it, so that also should be beautiful. So he says the words that are carefully or curiously or beautifully put together. So he talks about style, or the way in which things are said is also important to make it a literature. Now, if you look at many other definitions also, we can see that there are some common features. They are emotions and feelings. So most of the literatures, uh, they talk about emotions and feelings of the people. Then literatures talk about imagination. So most of the writings are imaginative. They talk about poetic truth, and this poetic truth need not be the reality, it is the truth that is perceived or seen by the author. And then the significant feature of a literature is the use of language. Usually we see that the language used in literature is different from what we use in our day-to-day life. And another feature is the pleasure that a literature gives. So most of the writings or literary pieces gives you pleasure after you read it. And then the educative purpose also. So literature talks about values, human values, and then when you consider what is English literature, um, there is some confusion. So everything that is written in English cannot be called as English literature here, because we have Indians writing in English, but that is not considered English literature, because uh, it is considered, because that is written in India, and we call that as Indian writing in English. And we have American literature that is written in English, but that is written in American English, and that's written in America. And likewise, you have English literature in Australia also, but that is not considered as English literature. It is considered as Australian literature because it's written in Australia. So, what is English literature then? So, English literature is the literature that is written in English and most importantly in Britain. So, what is Britain? Britain contains these four places, that is England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland. Other than England, in Wales and Ireland and Scotland, they have their own language like Welsh, Irish, and Scotland, but they also write in English. So, the literature that is written in English in these four places is called English literature. Let us move on to the kinds of literature or literary forms, or we call it as a literary genre. So we have poetry, we have epic, essay, novel, play, short story, and others. Now the question comes, why do we study literature? We study literature because we want to know the life and language of a place. If you read a novel, or if you read a short story or a poem, you come to know uh, the life and language of that particular place. So it's the same case with a human character and emotions also. So you know how the geographical surroundings influence the human nature and emotions. And the people read literature in the past and they read now because they want to show that they are well read and cultured or well mannered. And people read literature because it is part of their education. They read it now also because it's part of their education, like you do. And then people read literature for entertainment or enjoyment, and many, like you, may read literature because you have to pass an examination. Now, coming to the topic Gothic Romance. So, Gothic Romance, what is Gothic Romance? So, this word Gothic comes from the word Goths. Goths are the nomadic Germanic tribe. That means they are a tribe and they moved from one place to another in Europe in the past, and whatever belonged to them is called Gothic. So it can be about their language or it can be their architecture. So it is called as Gothic style. So their architecture uh, prevailed in Europe during from 12th century to 16th century. So now coming to romance. Romance is a story which combines love and adventure. So Gothic romance was was you can say it's a form of novel that combines fiction, horror, death, and romance. So Gothic romance is a form of novel. So and this kind of novel you find some features like fiction. Fiction is something fictitious. It may not be real. It is made up. And then you find horror stories, and we find a lot of death in that, and there is romance also. So these are the features, some of the basic features of Gothic romance. Then this kind of uh, romance or novel, it flourished in the early romantic period, that is the late 18th century and early 19th century England. Some of the major writers are Horace Walpole, who wrote The Castle of Otranto, and it was published in 1764. Then in 1794, The Mysteries of Udolpho was published by Anne Radcliffe, and then in 1796, The Monk was published by Matthew Lewis. Then Mary Shelley published Frankenstein, or it's also known as the modern Prometheus, in 1818. And then finally, Jane Austen, who wrote Northanger Abbey around in 1803, but it was published in 1817. I hope you enjoyed this video lecture. Thank you.